Let's go, 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 go. Yeah, 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 yeah. For the love of money, niggas come around. For the love of money, some stay around. For the love of money, what a nigga will do. For the love of the money, yeah. I gotta shake it, 12 at night. To 5 in the morning, they don't give a fuck now. If it's for the money, niggas gon' bark and they bite like a motherfucking dog. Gotta party like a motherfucking dog. For that cat, I am gon' roof. And I'm barking at that cat, and I am gon' take the roof off. And I'm riding that ride. Real leaning to the left, but I'm steady on the only right. I'm swerving with a purpose, with a purpose. A nigga been sipping on that purple. A nigga been cheaping on that purple. Cause I'm getting money, I'm getting money. Cause I'm getting money. And I'm laughing all the way to the motherfucking bank. And I'm telling her, tell me later if she thinking what I'm thinking. Damn me getting money. I walk about the bank and I stuck up in the wheel. Headed to my next big destination. Somewhere where I'm gonna be fake. Sipping on a motherfucking Molotov, feet in the fucking sand, looking like a motherfucker.
We know Jeffrey Epstein was definitely some sort of part of the intelligence state. I think we know he was working with Israel. He was working closely with Israel, former prime minister of Israel. And I think these are the dirty parts of government and the powers that be that they don't want the American people to know about. Sadly, I don't think it'll come out.
And we did see in the files that were released the fact that Epstein was emailing the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, saying that Epstein had a meeting with the leaders of Qatar, and if Ehud Barak could let them know, and then Epstein did a smile face emoji, that he was not a member of the Mossad.
Oh my God, we have evidence of how the DOJ is breaking the law and redacting Trump in the Epstein files. So I was scrolling through this file number when I came across Bannon, and I saw this redacted photo that looks very familiar because it's a photo of Trump from a Politico magazine article. Look what happens when I copy and paste this link. And there's just no reason for this very public photo to be redacted. I mean, protecting Trump in this drop. So not only did they break the law and lie, the DOJ was so sloppy in how they went about redacting Trump, like at least do a better job. So of course, this begs the question, what else is improperly redacted that we just don't know yet? The New York Times did this analysis and found more than 5,300 files with over 38,000 references to Trump, his family, Mar-a-Lago, and other key terms. But maybe there's more of Trump out there because there's a lot of redacted material. And by the way, what was supposed to be redacted were victims' names, which the DOJ just did a terrible job of. The Wall Street Journal actually found over 40 victims' names, and I even found some addresses. The DOJ could also withhold anything related to death, injury, or pornographic material, which this photo is definitely not. And we know that the DOJ isn't above redacting photos of Trump because remember in the last Epstein file drop, they redacted this photo of Trump in Epstein's desk drawer, but not before everyone caught on and there was all this outrage. So they like unredacted it. So who knows what they're doing this time? And like I said, this is illegal. So the Epstein Files Transparency Act says no record should be redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity when it comes to political figures. So it looks like the DOJ is breaking the law. The Newsgirls will continue to report on the over 3 million Epstein files, as well as how the administration responds to all the fallout. So make sure to follow to stay in the loop.
What the Epstein files say about Bernie Sanders Part 2. There's a link to a Washington Post article that says, so the guys in the Epstein files were upset that Bernie Sanders said greedy rich dudes are destroying the moral fabric of America. I think my problem with this is when Bernie said this, he didn't know how right he was. This one is fascinating and perplexing. It's an exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Paul Krasner, who's a satirist and the founder of the magazine The Realist. They're discussing the movement post-Trump's inauguration, almost describing what resistance to Trump looked like at the time. This is February 2017. They talked about how the people protesting the day after the inauguration were mostly women and children. It was organized, loving resistance. He talked about music like Beyonce, Gaga, and Springsteen, icons like the Republicans with conscience, which is hilarious to call out this group as if it's something unique and new. People who stand with Trump victims and personalities like Elizabeth Warren, John Lewis, and our boy Bernie Sanders. A lot of the emails that Jeffrey Epstein was getting were like news roundups, and so it's fascinating to me what news they were paying attention to. This one said Bernie Sanders was basically blacked out in the media during the election. The same email where they were discussing a Black singer evoking imagery of the Black Panthers. It seems like any sort of social movement, counterculture makes these guys nervous. They're paying very close attention to them. Epstein shared this piece about populist movements and how they can grow. You could begin to see the elements of Bernie Sanders coupled with the Trump movement that really becomes a dominant force in American politics. And they're talking about how Steve Bannon intentionally went to go study movements that merged nationalism and populism. And Bannon also mainstreamed a lot of QAnon ideas. The idea that there's a secret group of pedophile elites, the deep state controlling the government, when all along he was boys with Jeffrey Epstein. They tried to conjure up a populist movement in America while being a group of elites trying to pull the puppet strings of our politics, like the opposite of populism. And of course, here's a favorite from Larry Summers. He's doing well, except for the fact that his kids love Bernie Sanders. It's really giving, you might not like this one, but your kids are going to love it. It actually feels good that these guys were trying to create a populist movement that they could steer and control to their own personal benefit. And now the populists in America are united in their hatred of Epstein and his closest friends. And so as much as they want to try to destroy the moral fabric of America, I think it's beautiful that collectively we're not letting this go, and we're not letting them.
Files release continues, and last night President Trump's Justice Department said that it is not a crime to party with Epstein. You had years to come up with an excuse, and that's what you went with? No. If someone said that to you at a Super Bowl party, you would slowly back away and call the police. Trump was like, partying with Epstein doesn't make me a criminal. Yep. The 34 criminal convictions do. And that's
Let's move on to the big, exciting, you know what I'm talking about, the new Melania movie. Oh, someone didn't get their tickets in time. Don't be mad. But if you haven't seen the trailer, get ready to be blown away.
Here we go again. Hi, Mr. President. Congratulations. Did
you watch it?
I did not, yeah.
I I did not. Yeah, I was going to, but then I didn't. Now, when you first heard that there was going to be a documentary about Melania, you probably thought, oh, or huh, or why, or can I undo my LASIK? But Amazon believed in this movie a lot, like suspiciously a lot.
Bezos and Amazon are paying $40 million for a documentary on Melania Trump.
The most expensive bidder.
The First Lady will reportedly walk away with at least $28 million.
Huh. Why would Jeff Bezos, a billionaire who has tons of business with a government run by a famously corrupt president known for loving bribes, overpay for a Melania documentary? Let me think. Well, that didn't help. But whatever else this is, they made a real movie. They even got director Brett Ratner, who you might know from Rush Hour or the Me Too movement. And there's... But whether this movie was a legitimate piece of art or a cash grab, it was a cash grab. So I'm sure everyone involved with this project is very proud of the work that they've done.
Rolling Stone is reporting 2/3 of the film's New York crew asked not to be credited.
You didn't want to be in the credits, but how will they know who to give the trophy to at the FIFA Academy Awards? And you know that this is bad because people in Hollywood love taking credit. It is their favorite thing to do. By the way, I was the first person to make that point.
Bobby Ann Williams claimed she had a child named Danny Williams in 1985 by the then owner. Danny said that in 1993 he delivered yearly Christmas presents for the child. And these claims were reportedly verified through his mother Bobby Ann's 1993 polygraph test.
I have no doubt that I am Bill Clinton's son.
In 1999, DNA tests were reportedly carried out by Star magazine that debunked the paternity claims. But Williams has argued the test wasn't precise enough. Danny further alleged that one of Clinton's friends and donors who had an interest in burying the story purposely botched the test. So the question technically remains open. Danny says he isn't interested in hush money and just wants to meet his father.
Between 2003 and 2019, a single client relationship within the world's most sophisticated bank recently surfaced through unsolved court cases. Senate Finance Committee investigations in late 2025 and early 2026 brought this to light. This massive volume of capital moved through 4,700 individual wire transfers. It utilized corporate accounts and private banking structures. These transactions often bypassed the very safeguards designed to detect illicit activity. The complexity suggests a systemic failure in the global financial infrastructure. The wall of cash strategy allowed for massive withdrawals. Withdrawals of up to $80,000 in physical currency were made multiple times a month. These happened without an immediate shutdown of the accounts. Understanding the mechanics of this $1 billion scandal is essential for any investor. It is essential for any citizen who values the integrity of the financial system. If you want to stay informed on the high-stakes world of institutional finance, listen now. Subscribe to Finance Expert Now for this data-driven investigative series. The financial narrative begins at J.P. Morgan Chase. Internal compliance reports from 2006 flagged a pattern of routine cash withdrawals. This was the same year Jeffrey Epstein was first indicted. The reports flagged withdrawals that totaled nearly $175 million in a single 2-year period. These withdrawals often range between $40,000 and $80,000. They are textbook red flags for money laundering activities. Yet senior management allegedly allowed their relationship to persist. It persisted for another 7 years. The recently unsealed Produce Epstein Treasury Records Act documents show the truth. They show that despite general counsel warnings in 2011, action was slow. The bank continued to process millions in wire transfers to offshore accounts. It also processed transfers of individuals. This disconnect between compliance warnings and executive action is the core failure. It is the core of the $1.1 billion failure. It reveals how lucrative relationships can sometimes compromise institutional oversight. By the time JP Morgan terminated the relationship in 2013, the web had expanded. The financial web had already expanded to Deutsche Bank. This institution processed hundreds of millions in additional transactions until 2018. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden's 2026 probe revealed more details. It revealed that Deutsche Bank facilitated payments to specific individuals. Names were all these categorized by the bank as tuition or rent. These payments totaled millions of dollars. They occurred while the client was a known politically exposed person. The client had a documented criminal history at the time. The failure to challenge these far-fetched explanations was key. It allowed the $1.1 billion network to maintain its liquidity. It maintained its operational capacity across international borders. The scale of the scandal reached a new milestone in January 2026. Investigators uncovered a massive gap at Bank of New York Mellon. They had processed $378 million in suspicious wire transfers. These were not flagged to the Treasury Department for over a decade. This invisible debt of compliance underscores a pervasive culture. It exists within elite banking where high net worth individuals level of frictionless capital movement. This movement is unavailable to the general public. The $1.1 billion figure is no longer just a legal estimate. It is a documented reality of how the global financial system can be leveraged. It can be leveraged to provide a veneer of legitimacy to an illegal enterprise. When we look at the macro level data, we see the reliance on these major banks. They provided the unfettered access necessary to sustain operation. Its opportunity feeds. The 2025, 2026 show us the client was alive. Morgan flagged over $43 million in suspicious activity, but they filed retroactive reports for $1.3 billion after his death. This 300-fold increase in reported suspicious activity is a staggering admission. It is an admission of delayed compliance. It suggests that the system only works once the legal liability changes. It works when the liability of the client becomes greater. Find a stark reminder of why follow the money. It is the only true way to measure institutional accountability. Analysis of these bank records reveals the true flow of money. The $1.1 billion flow was not merely about personal spending. It was used to facilitate a network of co-conspirators and entities. This network listed known associates as beneficiaries. Corporate structures were used for these movements. Structures such as the Hayes Trust and Southern Financial LLC were key. They were used to move capital with the efficiency of a multinational corporation. For the American consumer, this is a profound realization. You must report every transaction over $10,000. Seeing a $1 billion pipeline operate for 15 years is eye-opening. It shows the two-tiered nature of modern finance. This investigation is about more than one individual. It is about the structural integrity of the banks themselves. The banks that manage the world's wealth are under scrutiny. To this analysis, we will managers. They allegedly counseled on how to avoid reporting requirements. The $1.1 billion scandal is a masterclass in failure. It shows the failures of Know Your Customer, KYC protocols. It shows the high cost of institutional silence. By looking at the hard numbers, we see the truth. The 4,700 transfers tell a story. The $378 million in BNY Mellon tells a story. The $1.3 billion in retroactive SARs tells a story. We can begin to deconstruct the trap of too big to fail compliance. The truth is in the ledger. The ledger shows a billion-dollar failure of the very system we trust. It is a system we trust to protect the global flow, required more than just passive negligence. It required a structural bypass of the very systems designed to protect the U.S. banking sector. As we move into 2026, over 100 new documents from the Southern District of New York have been unsealed. These provide a granular look at how 134 separate accounts were utilized. They were used to obscure the origins and destinations of these funds. This was not a singular bank account, but it's for millions of dollars in transfers. These transfers lacked any business purpose. If you are finding this institutional accountability essential, listen closely. Subscribe to Finance Expert now to ensure you never miss a deep dive. Stay informed on the forces shaping our financial reality. The wall of cash was only the visible tip of an iceberg. It extended deep into the private banking suites of Wall Street's most powerful firms. The Senate Finance Committee's 2026 expansion of the probe has revealed a pattern. The probe into Bank of New York Mellon revealed delayed reporting. This effectively granted a 10-year immunity to $378 million in suspicious transactions. These 270 wire transfers exhibited classic signs of structuring. Structuring is a technique where large sums are broken down into smaller amounts. This is done to evade the $10,000 threshold of the Bank Secrecy Act. Yet the bank waited until 2019 to flag these movements to the Treasury Department. This was a delay that Senator Ron Wyden has characterized as a potential violation of federal law. This decade of silence allowed for the continuous operation of a financial network. It should have been dismantled by the first line of defense, the Compliance Department. A key revelation in the 2025-2026 documents is the role of relationship coaching. Bank executives allegedly provided guidance on how to execute cash withdrawals. They showed how to do this without triggering automated red flags. Emails marked for Jamie or pending review suggest a high-level awareness. Concerns raised by junior compliance officers were escalated to the executive suite. They were overruled in favor of maintaining a high net worth client status. This honorary PEP, politically exposed person status, was granted to the client. It allowed the client to be treated as a low-risk entity despite a 2008 conviction. Forensic accountants describe this as a deliberate fudging of risk-based protocols. The profit motive was driven by the $1.1 billion in transaction volume. It created a moral hazard that compromised the institution's regulatory obligations. The Southern Trust Company provides a perfect case study in laundering. It shows how money was moved under the guise of economic development. Based in the U.S. Virgin Islands, this entity received millions in tax incentives. It served as a primary account for paying international associates. It was also used for maintaining luxury assets. The 2023 settlement of $75 million with the Virgin Islands was a direct result. It came from the bank's failure to verify the legitimate business purpose of these accounts. By failing to look behind the corporate veil, the system provided tools. It provided fictional arbitrage. This allowed wealth to be moved into zones with minimal oversight and maximum secrecy. The 2026 data shows that the Wexner relationship provided foundational capital. This involved the control of over $1.3 billion in stock sales. It was managed through unlimited power of attorney. This level of control over a third party's fortune is almost unheard of in private banking. Yet, it was facilitated without a source of wealth review. Such a review would be mandatory for any other client. The failure to question a former teacher with a thin resume is glaring. How could such an individual manage a billion-dollar stock portfolio? This is perhaps the most glaring evidence of systemic blindness. The banks didn't just process the money, they validated the man's standing. They helped him maintain a place in the global financial elite. Institutional inertia is often the greatest enabler of financial scandals. The $1.1 billion Epstein case is no exception to this rule. At Deutsche Bank, compliance teams were reportedly unaware of all active accounts. This was due to outdated technology and siloed information. One department thought an account was closed while another processed millions. This lack of a unified view of the customer is a common excuse. In a world of AI-driven monitoring, it is seen as willful ignorance. The $1.1 billion moved through these cracks in the system. It highlighted a vulnerability in the global AML, anti-money laundering regime. The tuition and rent excuse used for payments is the banks accepted these far-fetched explanations at face value. A $100,000 tuition payment to a non-student is a glaring anomaly, yet these were processed thousands of times over 15 years. The 2025 Epstein Files Transparency Act has forced the release of memos. Internal memos show bankers expressed regret over the relationship, yet they continued to approve the wires because the client brought in other billionaires. This referral-based compliance is a dangerous precedent. The wealth of a client's a shield for their own illicit activities. When we aggregate the settlements, the numbers are high. $290 million to victims, $75 million to the Virgin Islands, and $75 million from Deutsche Bank. The total cost to the institutions exceeds $440 million. However, this is less than half of the $1.1 billion that moved through. From a cost of business perspective, the failure was profitable for a time. This is why 2026 legislative efforts are focusing on individual accountability. They are moving beyond just corporate fines. The people behind the approved stamp must face personal. The billion-dollar trap of high net worth complicity will exist. The 2026 investigations into the Indike and Khan Signatory Authority reveal more. It shows how the infrastructure was managed from the inside. As accountant and lawyer, they oversaw funds through dozens of entities. Banks failed to flag these for nearly 2 decades. HBRK Associates Inc. and other shells were used to layer transactions. This is a technique designed to make the original source impossible to trace. These individuals were never questioned by federal authorities until the 2025-2026 push. It is a testament to the wall of protection $1 billion can buy. Ultimately, the $1.1 billion scandal is a warning. Flagging a transaction is not the same as stopping it. In thousands of cases, red flags were raised by automated systems, but they were cleared by human intervention at the executive level. This reveals a pervasive culture of lawlessness. The rules are for the many, but the exceptions are for the few. Deconstructing these 4,700 transfers and 134 accounts shows a blueprint. It shows how the global banking system was used as both a shield and a sword. The truth of the $1.1 billion is in the silence of the institutions. As we move into the final part, we will look at flight logs and travel records. These are now being linked to the financial transactions. The paper trail is finally catching up with those who thought they were. The mechanics of this scandal serve as a permanent stain on Wall Street. The ledger is open, and the numbers do not lie. The final phase of the $1.1 billion scandal is no longer a matter of speculation. It is a documented reality of how financial power can be used effectively. It was used to purchase years of silence and operational immunity. On January 30th, 2026, the Department of Justice completed a final release. This was under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It was a massive production of 3.5 million pages of evidence. It confirmed the intimate link between the movement of capital and victims. This data shows that the $1.1 billion was not just a static pool of wealth. It was a dynamic logistics fund used to finance global operations. It was used to finance 87 previously unknown flights across UK and European airports. These flights often occurred just days after large, unflagged wire transfers. If you followed this series to the end, you possess a deeper understanding. You understand institutional finance better than 99% of the public. Make sure to subscribe to Finance Expert now to continue deconstructing these systems. Continue learning about the global systems that govern our world. The 2026 unsealed documents from the Senate Finance Committee are shocking. They have highlighted a specific January 2007 surge in activity. During this time, the Bank of New York Mellon processed 18 separate transfers. Each transfer was for exactly $1 million. These happened within a single month. These transfers, $20 million were moved to JP Morgan account to verify a business purpose, according to investigators. Yet, these transactions are unreported. The Trail financial system has abandoned its role as a gatekeeper. When these dates are cross-referenced with flight logs, the truth emerges. They reveal a 100% correlation between high-volume liquidity events and travel. There was a direct link to international travel to private residences. The $1.1 billion was the fuel for a machine the banks failed to stop. They failed even when the red lights were blindingly obvious. A startling new detail from the January 30th release involves a specific purchase. It involves the Sikorsky S-76C transaction, Y Mellon account to an entity at JP Morgan. The entity was named Air Ghislaine Inc. The funds were used as a down payment. They were used for a luxury green helicopter. The client was under federal investigation at the time of this purchase. Yet the banks facilitated this high-value asset acquisition without question. They did it without filing a single suspicious activity report. This reveals that the $1.1 billion wasn't just sitting in vaults. It was being converted into mobile assets for global reach. It's allowed the enterprise to maintain its reach across borders. The banks didn't just see them. They saw the assets being acquired and chose to look away. The 2026 Epstein files also contain over 38,000 specific references. These refer to current and former political figures. It includes the highest levels of the 2026 administration. Many of these mentions are news clippings or social gossip. However, several thousand involve direct email correspondence. They also involve dinner guest lists found in the records. These lists correlate with large-scale donation cycles. This philanthropic money to be recycled. It was recycled into social capital for the individual. It made the individual too connected to fail in the eyes of society. By funding the very institutions that could influence policy, a loop was created. The network created a self-sustaining loop of protection. It is a stark example of how concentrated capital works. It can create a gravitational pull that distorts justice. It distorts regulation and accountability alike. In the final accounting, we must look at the opportunity cost of inaction. If JP Morgan had acted on its 2011 warning, things would be different. The General Counsel's warning to drop the client was ignored. Hundreds of millions in subsequent transactions would have been blocked if Bank of America had flagged the $170 million in transfers in real time, specifically the transfers involving billionaire Leon Black. The financial oxygen of the network would have been cut off. The tragedy is that the tools for detection already existed. The data was already in the banking system. The red flags were automated and visible to staff. The failure was not technological in nature. It was a human. They prioritized relationship over safety. They chose profit over the safety of the public. As we conclude this investigation, a new legacy begins. The $1 billion is the catalyst moving toward a new standard. Executive blindness is no longer a legal defense for bankers. The era of a bank paying a fine with shareholder money is ending. The era of moving on after a fine is coming to an end. The 4,700 wire transfers are now permanent evidence. The 31 corporate shell accounts are part of that evidence. The $1.3 billion in retroactive reports proves the systemic failure. These are evidence of a system that needs fundamental reform. At Finance Expert, we believe that transparency is the only antidote. It is the only cure for such systemic corruption. The lessons of the $1 billion scandal are now clear. Follow the money and question the tuition excuses. Never assume that too big to fail means too regulated to cheat. Understanding how this wealth was moved equips you for the future. You are better equipped to navigate the modern financial world. The $1.1 billion paper trail has finally reached its end. While the man is gone, the data remains as a map. It is a map of what we must never allow to happen again. Thank you for being part of this deep dive into the ledger. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and keep your eye on the numbers.
Formal English versus informal English.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
The United States launched a targeted operation against that compound.
They did a lot of shooting and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You know, you think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in?
After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
He died like a dog.
But his death does not mark the end of our effort.
A beautiful dog, a talented dog.
We give thanks for the men who carried out this operation.
And I don't get any credit for this, but that's okay. I never do. But here we are.
May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And I'm writing a book. I think I wrote 12 books. All did very well.
Follow us.
Find the clip of Hillary when she's running, where Hillary is more MAGA than Trump. I love this one.
I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. We should say, here, you have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
You're going to learn English. Everybody's cheering.
Yeah, they love it. They love.
Let's start with Donald Trump. According to polls, he's deeply unpopular with women. Maybe it's because they forgot their birthdays. It's hard to say. But the fact is, he's on the old Trump charm.
Women are poorer than they were 4 years ago, much poorer, are less healthy than they were 4 years ago, are less safe on the streets than they were 4 years ago, are more stressed and depressed and unhappy.
Ooh. Excuse me, you really know how to flatter a lady. Please tell me more about the bags under my eyes. I love how he's acknowledging that we're stressed out as though he's not the one stressing us out. This is like Boeing being like, weird how people seem so freaked out about air travel these days.
If they do that, we'll consider things targets they wouldn't believe. If they do that, we will hit them at levels and the options that are so strong. So, I mean, if they did that, it'll be met with a very, very powerful force. Iran called to negotiate. Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called, they want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States. Iran wants to negotiate, yes. We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting. But a meeting is being set up.
These are internal training videos for people who want to join a new Trump government in the hopes of someday being kicked off Dancing with the Stars. But they won't just hire anyone.
If you've been convicted of a crime, you will not be serving in the federal government. Crimes such as fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion show a lack of moral character.
Yeah, we'd hate to have fraudsters and tax evaders work for the Trump administration. Go on.
To obtain employment in government, it is not favorable if you have accumulated debt and file for bankruptcy.
You might want to run this up the chain to the boss because it's starting to feel personal. No tax evasion, no bankruptcies, no weird hairstyles. So we got a little off track with Biden and black people, but at least no one was thinking about the Epstein files anymore.
For minors.
We know. We all saw the birthday card. By the way, I was watching this on Fox News last night, and I had the captions on because I'm Gen Z. Don't Google it. And this is completely real. The way that it aired, you can actually see that the person doing the closed captions is also confused. And then, delete. Whoopsie. That's what Fox gets for hiring Prince Andrew to do the captions.
Battle of Gettysburg, what an unbelievable, I mean, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and a big, wow.
That is plagiarized almost directly from my 7th grade book report, Gettysburg, wow. I did not. Well, is that even my name? It was vicious and horrible and beautiful. Is he talking about a Civil War battle or a horse giving birth? Like, it was bloody, but it's life.
Video depicting the Obamas as apes. The initial White House response from Press Secretary video depicting President Trump as the king of the jungle and the Democrats as characters from The Lion King. Please stop the fake outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public. Then, a couple of hours later, after some significant intervention led by the only black Republican senator, Tim Scott, who was outraged, there came a new White House statement. A White House staffer erroneously made the post. It has been taken down. So this raises a load of new questions. If we're to
TX founder, Sam, just
Politics. So he reportedly bought Deck. It's a startup to provide Democratic campaigns with
predictive analytics, voter targeting capabilities, etc. And he reportedly paid $5 million of his own money for the company. You know, he donated some $40 million to mostly Democratic campaigns for the midterms. He wanted to get that up to $1 billion by the 2024 election. So this was all part of it, this purchase. But he told Axios, Ashley, he only has maybe $100,000 left in his bank account. That's it. Just 100,000, but that's more than a lot of people have left after what happened to them in the FTX collapse. And he blamed both personal failures and regulatory gaps for the FTX implosion.
Craig Pasta is the co-host of AM Wake Up and The Convo Couch, an independent talk show discussing and analyzing the daily news cycles and introducing new grassroots personalities. Please welcome Craig Jardula Pasta. How are you?
Thank you for having me on, Jimmy. The biggest story of the year with tentacles everywhere.
So it's going to have to fall on his now. Here's a right from this guy Ben. He says, CEOs. FTX is some cryptocurrency man. That's kind of an ironic name. He bankrolled the Democratic Party's midterms war chest to the sum of $40 million using funds from his now bankrupt crypto exchange. Meanwhile, blameless customers have likely lost billions in savings. This is a scandal everyone should be talking about. So, do I have? I do have jokes for this. Let me see. Go ahead.
The jokes should write themselves.
I like his name because he sounds like a superhero who smokes too much weed, right? Sam Bankman-Fried. Fried Bankman. That's what I like. So Kim.com said the FTX thief stole $1 billion from his customers and donated $100 million to the Democrats. 10% for the big guy. So they're referring to that thing they got off Hunter Biden's laptop when he was doing shady deals with China, and they were saying, hey, 10%'s got to go to the big guy. That means so that's what's going on there. Sounds to me like the kid knows how shit works and has a bright future, even though his haircut sucks. Anyway, so let me just show you one more. This is from Edward Snowden. He says the White House sanctions and arrests kids for the crime of building privacy tools to protect you, while just robbed 5 million people. The difference, the thieves were big political donors. And this is the FTX. So Joe Biden and Zelensky have been laundering money. Biden funded Ukraine, and then Ukraine funded FTX, and then FTX funded the Democrats. So they impeached Trump for so remember they impeached. So anyway, that's and then one more here. It says collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX had ties to Ukrainian government, the WEF, and top Biden advisor. So here's one more. It says Ukraine partners with FTX, Evers take to launch new crypto donation website. So it looks like there might be something to this conspiracy theory. As we analyze this conspiracy, we are conspiracy analysts at this show. Bring money operation all along. Yeah, the West donates billions to the war effort. Zelensky invests that money into FTX. And then the CEO of FTX is the second biggest donor to the Democrats. FTX then files for bankruptcy, and then billions of dollars go missing. Mm-hmm. So let me bring in Craig Pasta. Craig, explain to me what the hell is going on.
Well, it's, I look at it as another Wall Street bet scam right off the jump. And when I say the Wall Street bet scam, what I mean is that the bankers and all the elites are going to do what they normally do, and that's screw over the little guy. And at the end of the day, nobody's going to go to jail. I mean, I hope that there will be some justice in this situation. But FTX is pretty much just a crypto exchange that started in 2019. But the questions are, and it's very much linked to like a lot of the Epstein questions, is where did the money come from? We understand that he inflated his coin, his altcoin of sorts, by his second largest investor, just pumping in a ton of the money, driving the coin up, and all on speculation, just was able to get Hollywood people, athletes involved like Tom Brady, Kevin O'Leary, to go out and sponsor, do commercials for this coin. The only problem is this recently, everybody was locked out of their accounts. He claimed there was a hack, but we found out it was just nothing more than a big laundering operation. And this has tentacles everywhere, Jimmy. Everywhere you look in this story, there's who this guy is, who he's connected to, both his parents, Stanford professors, right? He went to MIT. He worked as a quant in a small boutique place, and then eventually, out of nowhere, with somehow some connections to top officials in the SEC, was able to start this exchange. I mean, by my personal opinions, by looking at all this situation over here, this guy was not an accident. This guy was almost meant to be. Because at the end of the day, with this whole situation taking place, even the people who did the screwing, who got involved with all the money and all the laundering, that being the Democratic Party, this morning, Jimmy, we had found out that FTX had given about $40 million in the 2022 cycle for the election. Now we found more information. It's up to $70 million we have now found that has gone to the Democratic Party mostly. There were a couple Republicans like Mitt Romney, I believe, and Ben Sass, who got like 10 grand each, but mostly it was just Democratic Party operatives. And then all those people around him. His aunt works at the WEF, the World Economic Forum. She's been there for quite some time. His brother, who got a lot of donations and monies for his philanthropy, which was all centered around the lockdown craziness, like the next great pandemic. So that's where his philanthropy and money went to. So he has connections all over the board.
Hey, let me just bring up the WEF. You brought up the WEF.
Yes.
The WEF is trying to hide their connection to FTX now. Yes. So Zero Hedge tweeted out, "Dear Davos Elite and the WEF, it appears you accidentally deleted your FTX partner website. Lucky for you, we found it on the Internet Archive, and here it is." Yep. So this is from the World Economic Forum, and it says FTX. FTX is a cryptocurrency exchange built by traders for traders. FTX offers innovative products, including an industry-first derivatives, options, volatility. So the charge is that this was a scam all along, and that the United States government gave billions of dollars to the Ukraine. Ukraine then gave I don't know how much money to this FTX. Mm-hmm. FTX then gave that money to the Democratic Party to the tune of $70 million, is what you're saying?
Something around that range. See, here's the thing. We don't know the exact avenues just yet. What we do know is that the Ukrainian government was getting tons of donations in crypto, but they had problems with that crypto to get it to weapons to kill Russians with. This guy, Bank Freed, stepped on in and made an announcement that they were going to help with the exchange process, because they were an exchange, taking some of that crypto and then turning it into fiat and eventually getting that money back into the hands of the Ukrainians for weapons and aid and everything else. The only thing is that they got caught funneling a lot of that money back into the DNC and back into candidates and all. It was just a scam that way. So it was, I mean, like I said, we don't have the exact ins and out just yet. There's a lot of things that have not come to fruition in the story. For instance, who got their money in and who got their money out. But we know that there is definitely a lot of smoke there. And we know that this particular CEO of FTX offered to step up and help Ukraine with the exchanges. We're going to find out more in the next several days what exactly went where, all the people involved. I mean, I don't think they can hide this. But like I said, all the information is not out there yet, including who got their money in and who got their money out.
So here's that $70 million number you're talking about. So these are from opensecrets.org. The biggest donator was Soros Fund Management, $129 million. And then FTX right there.
As more information's coming out, now we know it's $70 million. It's like, this is the gift that keeps on giving of stories.
So this is their little flow chart. This guy from FTX donates all that money to the Democratic Party PACs and candidates. They back Biden. Biden gives tax money in the form of military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Ukraine then gives that money to him. He then gives that money to the da-da. Do you see how this works, right? You see how this works?
It's away from Joe Biden, and this is personal money. That's our tax dollars.
Right.
That's coming there. And, like he stepped in, like, I'm going to help with the process. We're going to get this crypto turned to fiat. We're going to get you your weapons. It's dragging on, yada, yada, yada. And so how much money was going into the pockets of these politicians and how much was actually going back to Ukraine?
And so it just goes to show you that they were using Ukraine as a money laundering outfit scam, just like Afghanistan was. Here's Julian Assange to remind us what these wars are all about. What's Libya about? What's Iraq about? What's Afghanistan about? What's Syria about? What's Ethiopia about? What's Yemen about? What's Ukraine mostly about? It's about this.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
So that's why Joe Biden was allowed to shut down the Afghanistan money laundering scheme of the military-industrial complex and shift it over to Ukraine because they had another one waiting. And then after Ukraine, they've got China, right? And so they're not stopping the war machine. Now they have Ethiopia, and now they have Somalia. Now they have so they're not stopping the machine. He was allowed to end one of them. Then because it's been 2 days and thought, well, it worked. Nobody's going them to end what we're doing in Somalia or Yemen or Ethiopia or Syria. We're still occupying a third of Syria. Remember, it's the oil part. So it's a great distraction. Would you agree, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, Jimmy, a lot of people got shut out of their accounts, and you just think about who uses crypto. I think on crypto, they don't understand it. So this is definitely used, not just the fact that a different generation is more invested in crypto, it's that now more than anything, they're going to use this as an excuse to further regulate the market. You know what I'm saying? All that decentralized coins, the ones that Max Kaiser talks about, that's what this is all about. They're going to use this situation to go in there and make sure, just like they hired the 81,000 IRS employees, that's to come after the crypto. This is going to further allow them to once again suppress and put more digital chains on us so we can't collect the money that's deserving of us. In other words, they're cutting off other avenues of income. I mean, for my show comes from Rockfin. I've been demonetized 2 years now on YouTube. So just imagine how much more they can regulate the market and really try to shut people out. And that's what they're going to attempt to do.
So they're good. So they set up this scam, and then they're going to use this scam so they could get more power to regulate crypto, which is a threat to the U.S. dollar. That's again, it's just like, boy, it's like 9/11. It just happened to work out that they got everything the military-industrial complex wanted out of that. It's just amazing, all the authoritarian crap that we lost. Habeas corpus because of that. We lost the Fourth Amendment because of that. We don't have privacy anymore. We every email, every text, every phone call you make is being recorded by the government.
Yeah,
that's happening.
And we have to have answers now too as well. There's a lot of people involved, like Tom Brady, Kevin O'Leary. You know who Kevin O'Leary is?
Yes, from Shark Tank.
Okay, so now he was their spokesperson at one point, and he was getting paid in their coin. And I'm assuming that a lot of older people don't want to invest too much in the crypto market. So anytime they get any crypto assets, they would usually turn it to fiat and keep that money invested somewhere else. So we need answers on how much he knew, what was going on. That's a guy who never makes a deal on Shark Tank, but yet he went and got involved with FTX and this guy, which really couldn't show a lot of stuff on paper as far as liquidity. It was all speculation. So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. It's almost like the Bernie Madoff scam. I think the only reason why some information has come to light is there's a couple people with a few bucks out, like Wall Street Bets, and they would put this thing to bed quietly while a bunch of people, thousands of people like me, my friends, got locked out of their accounts. Money was there, and now it's gone. They're locked out. And all that money has been taken out It was lied that it was a hack. Then they found out the movement of money. What had happened was an executive from the company, MSVX, the second largest investor, he started selling off his money right away, and that kind of buzzed out the whole market. And all of a sudden, people started taking out their funds, and that's when they just locked everything up, said there was a hack, and now here we are today.
Last I heard that this guy right here was on his way to Argentina.
There's Argentina, Hong Kong, the Bahamas. From what we understand right now is that he's loosely detained in the Bahamas. In other words, he's on house arrest of sorts. And he just recently put his Bahama mansion up for like $39 million as well. And Jimmy, there's this whole, like, when I say this is the gift that keeps on giving as stories, there's the whole conspiracy side of this thing. There was a low-level executive of sorts in the Caribbean, in Puerto Rico, I believe it was, that was about to whistleblow on these guys, and he ended up drowned in it and dead.
Of course.
They got that whole situation going on with that. There's I think it was his Twitter or his Instagram profile. He was wearing a shirt, and he had a symbol on one of his shirts, and I guess that was kind of like the mirror image of the sex pedophilia website of the FBI or the speculation. I don't even get into the conspiracy part of it yet because there's so much other stuff going on. But like I said, there are things. He was living with his coworkers, all 20-something odd years old, in an incubator style place in the Bahamas, and supposedly they were all sexually active, and there was a lot of stuff going on. So there's so much to this story. It's like I said, it's like an octopus. There's so much stuff to it, and there's a lot of stuff we're going to learn over the next couple of weeks that haven't been told yet, including who got their money out and who was tipped off. I want to know who got tipped off. I am praying that we get some leaks and we get some answers, because some people, they got to answer for what they did.
We'll see you November 19th and 20th in Austin, Texas. November 26th, that's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, in Burbank. And then all December, we're going to be in Los Angeles doing Friday night shows. Come for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member. While you're there, you get all of our videos unedited. JimmyDore.com, not Jimmy Dore Comedy.
Oh, there's so much we don't know about what was going on behind the scenes with FTX, but you got to love this story from Fox News. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried. That's the narrative right now, I guess, that Bankman-Fried was donating large sums of money to Democrats, his family was, and he was effectively buying his immunity. Because we know what committed voter fraud. Literally.